Hello and welcome to another episode of the Decatur Dish. I'm your host, Decaturish editor and publisher, Dan Wisenut. We have a very special guest today. We have DeKalb County Police Chief Mirtha Ramos. For those of you who don't know, Chief Ramos started her career in 1997, and she's been with the DeKalb County Police Department since 2019. She holds a master's degree in psychology of leadership from Penn State University and is a graduate of the FBI National Academy and the FBI National Executive Institute. Chief Ramos, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Let's just dive right into it. Crime rates, as you know, are down nationally, and they're down here in DeKalb County, but yet crime remains top of mind for so many people here. Why is that? Even though we've seen lower crime than we ever have historically, it's still a top concern for people.
I think because crime, whether it's down or up, if it impacts people, it's going to be present in their lives. So if they're hearing about it, they're seeing it in their neighborhoods, they're going to think that crime is high. So we understand that while the numbers show that there's a reduction, I feel that the community still feels that the crime is extremely high right now, even though last year we ended the year with 13% reduction in violent crime and 13% reduction in property crime. And this year we're doing just as well thus far in the month of January. But I do understand that perception is reality.
Chief, catch me up. I seem to remember back when I started this, we were tracking Part 1 crime statistics, and then that was being submitted to the FBI. All police departments did this. Is that still how it's tracked?
It is, yes.
And where can the public access this data? If I want to know how many crimes happened in DeKalb County last week, let's say, is there somewhere on the county website we can pull that? How do we get access to it?
Actually, you can go on the website. There's a crime mapping tool there. You can enter the address. You can actually look on the map, and you can expand it. And you can go back as far as 6 months, and it'll tell you about the time of crimes in your neighborhood.
Chief, before the show, we were talking a little bit about the communications division of the DeKalb County Police Department. Obviously, it's a very important part of what you do, communicating with the media and the public. I was going to ask what your strategy is, but I think you've got some announcements to make in terms of you're expanding your team a little bit?
Yes, we're going from a whole one person to two. We had our PIO leave us about 1.5 years ago. It's taking us this long to find the right fit, and we finally have someone, his name is Blaine, and he will be joining the team. So we're looking to do things a little bit different. We're looking to expand our reach, and we're just looking to find more ways to engage with our community.
Well, Blaine, welcome. We and all the other members of the press look forward to working with you, so excited about that. Let's turn to a different topic. On Sunday, U.S. Immigrations and Custom Enforcement did some arrests in DeKalb County along Buford Highway. There was an incident in Chamblee and in Tucker and in Doraville. I wanted to ask, what is your involvement in that operation? Did you have any involvement in that operation?
The DeKalb County Police Department was not notified of any operation, nor did we know of it, and we were not involved at all.
What would you say is the department's current policy regarding communication with immigrations and custom enforcement?
We have had no communication.
So there's no policy, like if ICE contacted you today, what would the official response be?
Well, we're always available to assist any of our partners, whether they're local, state, or federal. So if they're requiring assistance in any capacity, we will be willing to help anyone that we have to. However, we do want to emphasize that we are here to provide police services to everyone, regardless of their immigration status. So we don't want anyone to think they cannot call the police. If they need something or if they've been victimized, I want them to feel comfortable calling the police department.
When your officers are out in the field and they interact with somebody who might have an immigration issue, either they've overstayed their visa or they're seeking asylum, what is the officer on the street, how are they supposed to treat that? What's the policy there?
Well, we wouldn't have that information because we do not inquire about immigration status when we're dealing with people. Whether they're subjects or victims, we don't inquire about immigration status.
This is a somewhat related question. This week, the Trump administration announced that there is a freeze on all federal grants. Does the DeKalb County Police Department have any grants? I think they do, because I think I got a press release recently about a COPS grant. And if so, how many of those grants do you have, and what's happening now?
Unfortunately, our grants person's been out of the office, so we don't know how we will be impacted, but we are looking into that.
We'll keep you posted on that on Decaturish.com. It's a story that's going to affect all of us. We're calling all of our cities today, in fact, because everybody has access to this money. In the past, how has the police department used those kinds of grants?
Usually we use it for equipment and just for funding things that we need to make sure that we're able to provide the best service possible.
And do you have an estimate of how much in grant funding you've received since you've been police chief?
The last time I looked, it was about $8 million in the last 5 years.
So obviously a huge impact to any local budget. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Police response time continues to be an ongoing concern for people in our community. When we're able to get off hold of 911, sometimes it feels like it takes a long time for officers to respond. Chief, in your opinion, what is the optimal response time? And we're going to break it up into two categories. What's the optimal response time to a violent crime report, like a shooting or an armed robbery, versus something like a traffic crash or a property crime?
I think the difference is that we look at it from two different perspectives. So a response time for us would be the moment that the officer is dispatched. And when we see it from that perspective, an officer is responding to a priority call within 8 to 10 minutes. A non-priority call could be 20 to 25 minutes. We understand that the citizens may be waiting longer, but we're not part of the waiting for 911 process, waiting for 911 to triage the call and then finally dispatch to the officer. So for us, we understand that they may be frustrated when we get there because they've been waiting an hour or so, but a lot of times when we're dispatched, we're there within 20 minutes.
So that's for property crime or violent crime or both?
For emergency crimes, we would like to be there anywhere between 8 to 10 minutes. Depending on the time of day, it could be a little less, it could be a little longer. But that's from dispatch time. There's a process of the call taker, then the dispatcher. So there is a process before it gets to us, which adds to that time.
There's been a lot of stories in the news about the long hold times with DeKalb County dispatch. How has that affected your operations and your ability to respond to these incidents in our community?
Well, for us, we're not familiar with the call until it actually is dispatched to us, and 911 does not report to the police department, so it's kind of difficult for me to say. I will say that when we're dispatched, we make it our priority to get to the call, whether it's a priority or not priority. Our goal is to get there as soon as possible.
Chief, as you know, people call 911 for all kinds of reasons. Some of it's really important and urgent, some of it's not. What can the public do to alleviate some of the burden on dispatch and police officers if they have something? Let's say they noticed a leaf blower was stolen out of their garage. Should they call 911 for that, or is there another number or an email address they can use to communicate that information and file a police report?
Well, there's a couple things that they can do. One, they can call 911. We're actually working to implement our online reporting. So for things like that, you'll be able to go online and just file the report yourself. And some of the things that we've done is we've implemented our community service aides. They're the type of person that we can dispatch on a low-level call where there's no violence, no potential violence, and they've been helping out with calls. So last year in 2024, even though we only had 10, they handled almost 19,000 calls. So that's 19,000 calls that were not dispatched to officers, that were dispatched immediately to a community service aide.
Backing up just a second, we were talking about crime rates. Are you concerned at all that the crime reporting in DeKalb County might be low because some people just give up? They give up when they try to phone these things in.
Well, I don't think that the crime numbers are low. They're lower compared to where they were in the past years, but the numbers are still high and people are still reporting them. We have a tip line, and last week alone we received 16 tips. So people are reporting in whichever fashion. So we have a tip line. They can report to DKPD chief at DeKalbCountyGA.gov. That's an email that goes directly to my office. So we have several ways that the community can file a complaint or make a report. So we're just here to try to make it as easy as possible. We understand it can be a challenge.
Sure. Are you concerned that there might be an underreporting of crime going on, that you might not be getting an accurate reflection of the crimes that are going on in our community because of the issues that people have getting through to dispatch?
I would be concerned, but I really don't think that that's a problem just because of the different ways that they can make these notifications and because the community have built good relationships with their precinct commanders. I've seen the emails. People know how to get a hold of us and they're utilizing every which way they can.
I wanted to talk about staffing because police recruitment and retention has been an issue nationally. It's certainly an issue for DeKalb County Police. How many officers does DeKalb County Police, how many officers are you authorized to have within the budget, and how many do you have?
I don't have the exact number, but it's 800 and something that we're actually budgeted for. And currently, right now, we are at 531. So we definitely are experiencing a shortage. But we're still doing the best that we can, and I feel as though that when the community or anyone else helps on the shortages of personnel, what I say is there's no shortage of service. And so we're doing the best that we can. We're expecting our officers to go out there and do the best they can every day. So yes, I would love to have much more officers, but I do think we're doing a great job. We've been able to reduce the crime numbers, even though we have seen a shortage in staffing.
How does that impact service? For example, you have different zones that you have officer staffing at any given time. Are you able to fully staff those shifts in those various zones?
We're able to fully staff the shifts because we are still offering triple overtime. Back in 2022, when we experienced the most of our people leaving during that year, we had a discussion and it was decided that we would offer triple overtime. The reason we offered triple overtime is we wanted to incentivize officers to work additional hours so that the officers that are working knew that they had support and that they weren't out there by themselves. And since we've implemented the triple overtime, we have not had a shortage of staffing during our shifts.
Explain triple overtime to me, if you don't mind. Is it overtime times 3, basically? Is that how it works?
Overtime is usually time and a half. So now it would be 3 times. So normally it would be time and a half from your salary. This would be 3 times. So if you made $20 an hour, instead of making $35 by time and a half, you're now making $60 an hour. So times it by 3, your regular hourly salary.
That sounds expensive. From a budgetary perspective, is it better to have a fully staffed department, or is it better to have officers making triple overtime?
It is way better to have a fully staffed police department. However, I think this is the solution in the moment, and until we come up with another one, it's working. So we want to do whatever it takes to make sure that our citizens are getting the service that they deserve and that our officers feel safe while they're out there working.
There are problems nationally with police staffing, as you know. There are problems that are specific to DeKalb County. Just zeroing in on DeKalb County, what do you think is DeKalb's biggest challenge when it comes to police recruitment and retention?
You know, I think the challenge is that while our salaries are competitive, you really have to work in DeKalb County. We have a high level of activity, whether it's crime or not crime, we have a high level. So the number of calls for service, whether they're violent crime, property crimes, they're high compared to other places. So if you have a choice, you may want to go somewhere where you're going to make the same amount of money, but maybe work a lot less.
Chief, we have a new CEO, Lorraine Cochran Johnson. Obviously, she's here. She's new. She's learning as she goes on the job, so she's got a lot to sift through. What can she do for you to make your job easier, whether it's recruiting more personnel, having better equipment? What things do you need from the county government right now?
I think is exactly what she is doing. So on her first day, one of the things that she did was reach out to me for information about our staffing levels, salary incentives that we were discussing, different ways that we can retain our officers. So on her first day, I can attest to the fact that she was requesting information to help her make those decisions that can help us with our staffing levels.
This has been I'm sure, a truly tough time to be the chief of a major police department. You came on in 2019 and COVID hit the next year, and then right after that there was unrest. We had the protests over the death of George Floyd and protests that followed after that. What do you think has been the toughest moment for you as this county's police chief?
I think the toughest moment is trying to balance taking care of our community while taking care of our officers and making sure that the administration is getting what they want as well. What people don't understand is that I am responsible for all of that, the community, the officers, and the administration.
What's been the highlight of your time here in DeKalb County, going back to 2019?
I think my highlight is the fact that we've increased our community outreach and engagement. I mean, it really makes me happy to be out there in the community. It brings me joy to see the community being able to spend time with us. We have community safety fairs, we have coffees with a cop, and they're always full of people that are thanking us for being there and engaging with them in non-police matters. We want to be able to interact with the community, not always when there's a problem, but just to have a conversation. And I think we do that, and we do it well.
Let's pivot to that a little bit because I wanted to talk about the police department does so many initiatives, whether it's after hours activities, you're playing basketball with some of the kids, you're playing video games, there's some mentorship opportunities. What is the police department doing to better engage with the community in a way that is not adversarial? I mean, a lot of people, the only time they see a police officer is when something bad happens. What are the ways that your department is working to create different interactions with the community and officers?
Okay, so first I'm going to say that our precincts are doing a really good job. If we take 2024, because I have the numbers fresh in my head, we hosted 48 coffees with a cop in 1 year. We hosted 2 community safety fairs. We had 8 town halls. We had 32 Majors Night Out, which is where the precinct commander goes out into a neighborhood that is experiencing crime and he's knocking on doors and introducing himself. We have programs for the children. We actually have a swim program where we're teaching kids how to swim. We partner with the Y, and we also have a career development program where we're taking children, we're teaching them about money, we're teaching them about careers. We're partnering with Georgia Piedmont. We want to be able to say if college is not for you, you can go to a technical school. We are really going over and beyond our responsibilities as a police department by really engaging with the youth, engaging with our community. We want to make sure that people know, yeah, we may be short, but I'm going to emphasize again, we're not short on services. We want to make sure that they know who is out there servicing them, who's out there in their community, who their precinct commanders are. If their children are having trouble, they know they can call us. We will have a program for them. We're very highly engaged. And when you say about my biggest joy, that is my biggest joy, the fact that we are a community-oriented police department.
Last question. We're starting a new year, almost at the end of the first month. What are some things that are on your radar this year in 2024 that we should be looking out for that you're concerned about?
Concerned? I don't know if I'm concerned, but I'm looking to make sure that we continue with our recruitment. I know that our officers are working really hard every day. I know that even though they're getting rewarded with triple overtime, I know that it's challenging. I know that it takes a toll. I know it takes them away from their family. So part of my job is to focus on recruitment. More importantly, I want to focus on retainment. I want to keep the officers that we have while bringing in new people so that we can lessen the load. Our officers carry a heavy load, and just because they carry it well does not mean that we don't know that it's heavy.
Indeed, and I think to add to that, I think police officers often are tasked with responsibilities that aren't really their responsibilities, right?
Nowadays, if there's no one else to call, people will call 911. Instead of referring them somewhere else, we do what we can to make it work.
What can we as citizens do to make that load a little lighter? What are services we could be providing? Now police departments are implementing more mental health officers and trying to keep people out of prison or out of jail if they have a mental health crisis. What are some of the other social supports we can put in place so their first call isn't to a police officer?
Well, there is 988, which I think is a popular number, at least with us, but not with the community. We try to do our best to promote that. So when someone is having a mental health crisis and or they're thinking of killing themselves or harming themselves in any way, they can call 988. They can dispatch a unit, and they do a lot by phone as well. I think they're touting 85% of their calls are solved without ever leaving the building. But if they have to leave, they actually have units that they can dispatch to help out. But if they don't and they call 911, I want to say that we have a mobile crisis unit, which is our officers that are specially trained to deal with people experiencing behavioral crisis. Now, people would say, well, why are we doing it? We shouldn't be involved in it. Well, if they're going to call us, we're going to find a way to do it. So, yes, I feel as though people should call 911 and other resources, but if they have nowhere else to turn, we will be there, and we are equipped to do so.
Thank you so much for sharing that number. I should have asked for that way earlier. 988, if you're having a mental health crisis, please call that number. Police Chief Mirtha Ramos, Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing information about the police department. I know you were very busy. I know that was a challenge to put this into your schedule. So thank you so much. Thank you for your service. Thank you to all the police officers watching for your service. I know we don't always write things that you agree with, but we do respect you and we appreciate the task that you have in front of you. Chief, I hope you can join us again sometime.
Thank you. It would be my pleasure.
This is the Decatur Dish Show. We air every Tuesday at 12:30 p.m. right here on Atlanta News First Plus. To check out episodes of this show, please download the Atlanta News First Plus app. You can download that on your phone or your streaming devices. I am Dan Wisenhunt. I am the editor of Decaturish.com. For the latest local news, visit Decaturish.com or visit locally sourced news to sign up for our daily email. With that, we hope everyone has a great week. Stay safe, and we'll see you again next Tuesday right here on ANF Plus.
Ooh.